Well, hey folks, and welcome to Solar Cabin Channel. Hey, today I want to discuss something that I think is really important. And that is, if you're going to be sustainable on your homesteads or around your homes, you really need to be able to produce some of your own food. I recommend you be able to produce at least 50% of your own food, and I'm going to introduce you to one of the great ways to do that that is not expensive and can be done just about anywhere, even in the city. Even though they may have laws against it, and that is raising chickens. I think every homestead should have chickens. I think they're one of the most beneficial and useful animals that any person has ever domesticated for use. They provide so many different products. So I'm going to introduce you to my chickens, show you my little coop, and show you some of the products that I used and recommend, and just give you maybe a heads up, a little bit of advice for starting out with chickens and raising chickens. So first, let's take a look at my chickens. Now, these are my chickens right here. This is Mrs. Owl looking at us. She's hoping I've got a treat for her. And that's Mrs. Eagle. Now, these are, I only have 2 chickens. I had 3. I lost one over winter. Mrs. Eagle's going to go on up in there, probably lay me some eggs. I think I got some eggs in there. Mrs. Owl there. And Mrs. Owl is an Easter egg chicken, which is one of those ones that lays green eggs. They also call them an Americana. Mrs. Eagle there, I call them that because of their colorings. Mrs. Eagle is a Russian Orloff chicken. Now, both of them are, both breeds are fairly good layers, friendly, easy to work with, and they are also good meat birds, but they're not the largest of birds. She's going to go in there and try and lay her some eggs. So let's take a look inside this coop here. This is a coop that I built out of completely 100% recycled materials. But I come up with this, my own design. And here at the back, I'm going to look in here and see, because I think they already laid some eggs. I'm going to watch her. Here you can see the inside of the pen. And you can see they've got a roost. I've got a roost across the back here. And then inside the boxes I've got a couple of milk crates. And you can see they laid me a couple of eggs down there. And she's probably looking, I think these were laid yesterday, and she's probably looking to lay another egg. So I'm going to take these eggs out of here. You don't want to leave eggs in your boxes, otherwise they will at some point decide to break and eat them if they're not broody. So there's a couple of eggs. You can see the difference in colors. One's green, one's brown. These would be, if you used to buy these at the store, these would be a grade AA egg. They're not the extra large eggs, but they are what would be considered a large egg, and you'd spend about $2 a dozen or more, depending. Now, because these are organic, fresh eggs, generally you'll find those in most cities. You'll have to pay at least $4 a dozen for organic eggs. I average, with 2 hands, I average about 2 eggs a day, sometimes just 1. Sometimes a hen will take a day off and not lay, then she'll start laying again. So during the good weather, during spring, summer, and fall, I average, you know, a couple eggs a day with a break in between. So you're getting quite a few eggs. That's a dozen eggs a week. And since it's just me, I don't have a family here with me to take care of. If I had a family, I'd have a few more chickens. But that's actually more eggs than I can eat in a week. But that's okay, because I use the extra eggs for old Pothound over there. That's Taz. You can see there. Oh, Taz, say hello. And she gets the eggs, the extra eggs that I don't eat. Now, the other thing is, I also break these eggs after I use them, and I put the shells back in here for the chickens to eat. I don't give them the whole egg shells. I break and crunch them into little pieces so they don't recognize them. I think they still know they're eggs, but they will eat the egg pieces. That replenishes the calcium that they need to produce eggs, okay? If you don't do that, then you need to provide them some other kind of calcium source. Now, here's the chickens in the chicken pen. Now, this pen is 4 feet by 4 feet wide. With an 8-foot long run underneath it. And I'm going to show you how I built this, and then at the end of this video you can go get the free plans for this coop if you want to build it. It's actually called a chicken tractor, and you can go get the plans for this on my website for free. And while you're there, take a look around at some of the other things I do. Now, they're looking around for a treat. I'm going to close this lid back up. Now, this pen, like I said, is made from completely recycled materials. Some 2x4s. I had some old 2x6s for the bottom. You could use 2x4s. And I think this took like about 12 2x4s to make. And it's the box is 4 feet by 4 feet. You can see I've got some ventilation holes. I've got a door there because I free range my chickens sometimes. I like to let them out and free range, especially in wintertime and early spring. I like to free range them, so I'll open up that door right there. The rest of the time I keep them in the cage. Otherwise they'll go and lay eggs. They'll lay eggs out in my grasses and under my bushes and shrubs like that, and I don't want to have to go searching for eggs. So as soon as I want to start collecting eggs again, then I lock this door up. Instead they have this door here with a little ladder so they can get in and out, and they've got this nice run, and this run is 8 feet long, and the whole box, the whole pen, back up here so you can see the whole thing is 4 foot high, 4 foot wide, and 8 feet long. The box is 2 feet deep, and let's see, might be 2 feet, no, it's 2 feet deep and 4 feet wide, so that gives them about 2 feet underneath there, about 18 inches underneath there, so they can walk underneath the pen. That gives them a place to get shade underneath the box and kind of protects them a little bit from the elements and the wind. It's just got a flat top. I don't worry about the flat top. If it gets real snow on top, I just push the snow off, but it's just a 4x8 sheet of plywood for the top, 2x4 framing. I built this whole thing in a day. Probably about 6-7 hours I built this thing, and I use regular chicken wire. Some people prefer the mesh hardware cloth. Hardware cloth will probably be a little bit better if you have a real problem with predators, but it's more expensive, so I just use regular old chicken wire, which you can get. I think I paid $10 or $15 for a 20-foot roll of chicken wire, and I still got some left over there. And if you used to buy all the materials brand new for this, you're probably looking at about $25-30, somewhere around there, for the materials. Another $10 for the chicken wire, so maybe about $35 to build you a nice chicken coop. Now this is a nice size. You could actually put a lot more hens in here than what I have. I only have the 2 hens in here because I said I lost one, but this would be a good size, from anywhere from 3 to 5, maybe 6 full-size chickens, maybe 8 bantams you could get in here. And this is a good size to hide in your backyard, which is what I was talking about. If people if you're living in the city where they say you can't have chickens, this is the kind of coop you might want to consider building, because it's small and it doesn't take up a lot of room, and nobody's going to know you have chickens in there unless you tell them, probably, as long as you don't have a rooster, which I don't recommend you get a rooster unless you want to have your chickens' eggs fertilized and maybe have a broody hen to raise them. Instead, I'm going to show you how you can get chicks and raise your own chicks from chicks that you can buy. Usually at any farm supply store in the springtime they will have chicks, or you can order them online. I'm not real fond of ordering any animal online. I think that stresses them out. I usually buy my chicks locally from a farmer supply store here, and that way I can look at the chicks and make sure they're healthy. They're already acclimated to our area, so they tend to do better. Now, some things I would recommend. If you're going to raise chickens from chicks, you're going to need some type of way to keep them warm. Now, since I live off-grid, of course, then using power is a concern to me. I only have a small power system, so I don't want to be using a light bulb in order. A lot of people use a light bulb in their brooders. I don't use a light bulb for a couple reasons. They have a tendency to set fire to things, which I definitely don't want as a fire in my cabin. So I come across this product. This is made by Brinze. It is 12 volt. It runs off 110, but it has you can see it's got a 12 volt converter on it. Uses very, very little power, but it keeps the temperature. It's got a plate underneath here that keeps the temperature nice, just where you want it. You can see it's got a metal plate underneath there. Comes with a couple of legs. They're not cheap though. They're about 80 bucks. But you're going to use it, if you raise chickens, then you're going to use this probably several years. This thing will last you practically a lifetime, probably, as long as because you're only going to use it for about a month while you get your chickens until they start getting their feathers on them. So, you get one of these for 80 bucks, but you're going to use it for year after year after year, so they're pretty good, especially for an off-grid system. They're much safer than a light bulb. They keep the temperature much better, and they're designed so the chicks can go right underneath them. So I use this to raise these chicks that are under here. I just put this in one one of those big plastic tubs, filled the bottom up with some sawdust, and kept the chicks in there until they got their feathers on them. And then you want to feed your chicks mash, designed specifically for chicks. And then you need a water of some sort. I've used different types of waters. These are waters that I've used in the past. These are okay, but in the wintertime these things will freeze and you can't get the ice out of them, and then if you try to get the ice out, you'll break them. So I don't recommend them except for summer use. I keep them around for when I'm raising chicks, or sometimes I use them in the summer. Same thing with these plastic feeders. They're okay, but they're not going to hold up. So I can tell you, I don't use these. I keep them around just in case I need to set up a small pen for something like that. These waters like this, you have to tip them over and dip them into water, or fill them up with a bucket with a hose, and then put the top on. And if you try to get the ice out of those things, they're going to be froze up. You can't get the lids off the damn things. I think they're a bad design, but that's about what you can find, unless you can find a metal one. Even the metal ones have the same problems. So instead, what I use, you can see down there, I've got a dog bowl, $2 dog bowl that I put the food in, and I've got an old pan. Excuse me. You can see I've got an old pan down there that's got a dent in it. Now, I can tell you now, this is the most easiest, convenient way for me to water my chickens. I dip that into I've got a water trough over here that's always got fresh water running in it. And I just dip that pan in, and I can even rinse it out, and put fresh water in there morning and then again at night. And why I like that is because in wintertime here, it will freeze the water solid. After about 4 or 5 hours sitting out, that water's going to freeze solid. So that's why that pan is dented, because I bang it against a tree to knock the ice out, and then I dip it back in water and put the water back in it. You can't do that with these. If you try to bust the ice out of these, you're going to bust the containers, and these things aren't cheap. They run you about $10, $15 for a feeder of water, whereas I can get an old pan anywhere, okay? And so I use old metal pans for watering and that. In the wintertime, like I said, they will be free range. That door will be open, so then they can go over there to that trough and get fresh water anytime they want. But in summer, then I fill up that pan and make sure they have fresh water. Chickens need fresh water, even though they don't drink all that much. They pant out of their mouths instead of sweat, and so they don't need a lot of water, but they do need fresh water when they need a drink. They'll start panting just like a dog, and you can tell that they need water. Now on this pan, I also have a door here, which you can see I just made out of a piece of plywood, and I actually used wire for the hinges, drilled some holes through both sides, and just used some wire for some hinges. I wasn't going to pay for hinges or anything special on this. I just used wire for the latch, and this is just big enough that I can get in here, and I can fill up their bowl or empty it out. I can grab that water pan, dump it out, and put it back in here. And so that makes it really convenient. And then for food, for adult birds, then what you want to get, usually you can either get pellets or you can get scratch. Scratch is a lot less expensive. A bag of this, which is called Product Pride, which I got at Tractor Supply, is about 10 bucks for I believe this is a 50 pound bag of food, and that will last 2 birds or 3 birds. Oh, good grief, that'll last them at least 4 months. I can probably get 6 months out of a bag like that, because I do throw in greens. I throw in scraps from my own eating, as long as I don't usually give them meat. Just don't like passing on the chemicals and stuff that's in meat if I bought it at the store. But I will put any type of vegetable leftovers in here. Chickens love that. Like I said, I do give them the old eggshells all crushed up to eat, and anything else I can find. They love bread, and you know, they're basically like pigs. They will eat just about anything, so they get rid of your food waste. Now you'll notice this pan is not very dirty inside. Okay, even with a couple of chickens, and they've been in here for about 2 months now, you'll notice that there's no buildup of chicken manure, and I don't keep anything on the floor. It's just plain old dirt. I do have some bedding up inside the box. That just kind of insulates the box so they don't get cold on their feet. But I don't have any bedding down here, and the reason is, with just a couple of hands, what they will do is they will scratch any fertilizer, poop, right back into the soil. So underneath this is going to be really, really fertile ground underneath there, and then I will take this, I will scoop up some of this dirt and add it to my flower beds and my garden, which I'll show you out front. I garden with raised beds, and so I'll take some of this dirt, and usually in the spring what I'll do is I'll put them in either some straw or some hay. I prefer hay, and let them compost all that together. So I'll have dirt with green compost and chicken fertilizer, and I will add that to my gardens usually in the fall. That way it sits over winter, because chicken poop is high in nitrogen urea acid, and it will burn your plants if it's fresh. So I like to leave it over winter on my raised bed gardens, and that way it's broke down, not quite so strong by the time I put my plants in spring. So that's my chicken coop. Like I said, it didn't cost me really anything other than the chicken wire. I had to buy some chicken wire for 10 bucks, but the box and everything like that was just some old plywood and some 2x4s that I had left over from some other projects that I used for my chicken coop. And I average a couple eggs a day, which feeds me, it would feed 2 people easily, and also gives me some food for old Taz over there. Now you'll notice that my chicken coop is actually in her pen. Okay, this is her backyard where I keep her locked in whenever I leave the cabin, because I don't want her to wander off and get hit by a car, or I don't want, if a stranger approaches, I don't want her to get too mean with a stranger, but I can let her out to guard my property if possible. So this chicken coop is in her yard, and you'd think, well, why would you keep your dogs and your chickens together? Well, you notice she don't bother the chickens at all. She's been trained from the time she was a young puppy, She's been trained from the time that she was a young puppy to not bother the chickens, We don't bother the chickerbucks, do we? And she's a very good dog. And she actually, because she's back here, she keeps predators away from the chickens. She will keep any skunks, raccoons, foxes from getting anywhere near that chicken coop. And I have had skunks come around. I could smell them, but she's chased them off. And now a skunk will generally, they'll dig underneath a coop like that, and then they go in there. They don't eat the chickens, the adult chickens, but they'll go in there and eat eggs. Foxes will kill a chicken, so will a raccoon kill a young chicken if they can get a hold of it. But they're more after the eggs. The raccoons and the skunks are after the eggs. Foxes, hawks, this keeps any hawks or anything away. So Taz is back here. She's the protection dog. And it also, believe it or not, it gives her a little bit of company, because I may not be around the cabin all the time. Having the chickens around is having another animal around. Dogs is good, where I don't have 2 dogs anymore. I lost old Wally in the spring, so she's here by herself. So she actually enjoys the company of the chickens, believe it or not. She sits and watches them play. She never gets mean with them all, unless they try to get into her dog bowl, She never gets mean with them or anything like that. All right, so I'm going to put the plans for this on my website, simplesolarhomesteading.com. You can go get a free set of plans while you're there. Take a look at my other projects there. I've got projects for lots of different cabins on there. I've got some houses on wheels, and I've got some micro campers. I've got some teardrop campers on there, and lots of other projects on there. So go look at my website, simplesolarhomesteading.com. Grab yourself a set of these free plans. Enjoy yourself, and I'll take you out and show you where my garden is real quick, just to show you how I'm doing so far this year gardening. I'm a lazy gardener, as most of you know, but the garden boxes, I've got a few things in them. I've got some, let's see, you can see I've got some banana peppers, and they're ready to pick. That plant's pretty much done. And then I've got some tomatoes that are coming on. You can see I've got some nice, pretty good sized tomatoes there. Pretty nice. These are beefsteak. I like the beefsteaks. They seem to do well in my area, and they're also pretty heavy producers. So I get, all my plants got tomatoes on them. Now I got these plants on sale. They were about dead. The store had them sitting out front, and they only wanted 10 cents a plant for them because they were about to die. So I took 3 of the plants, not expecting them to live. I usually get plants at the greenhouse that are almost ready to produce tomatoes. Sometimes they even have tomatoes on. But I got these, and just very well, I'll put them on my garden this year and see if I can save them. You can see how big this one is here. And I use cages to support the branches, and then I also, you can see this board I got across the top. When they get real heavy, I'll tie up the heavy branches so the tomatoes don't break them off. But I'm going to get some pretty good tomatoes. And then I've got a couple of cucumber plants down there, and that's all I put in this year. And you can see I'm a lazy gardener. I don't weed very much. I got all kinds of grass in here. I need to go through and kind of pull out some of the bigger weeds and everything like that. I don't worry too much about weeds. You know, the plants still thrive. They do fine because I give them plenty of nutrient. Now I use that chicken manure, like I said, in the fall. I'll scoop a bunch of that out once these plants are done growing, and then I'll just lay that on top of here and let it sit over winter under the snow. That way it breaks down most urea, and then I spade it in with a hoe or a pitchfork and just kind of spade it back into the soil. That fills my boxes back up where I've lost any soil, and also adds some nutrients and fertilizer to my garden beds. So that's how I use the nutrients. So chickens, the benefits of chickens are many. You'll get eggs, of course. You will get feathers. If you happen to be a fly fisherman, and you like to tie your own flies, you'll get feathers you can tie your flies from. Some people use the feathers for other purposes, making pillows and decorations and things like that. You will get fertilizer, great fertilizer for your garden beds or whatever, and you will get meat, of course, if you want to butcher your chickens. Not everybody likes to butcher their chickens, okay? Not all people like to do that, and that's fine. However, if feeding a chicken that isn't laying eggs is kind of worthless, however, and so, you know, I do butcher my chickens once they stop laying. Then they usually have lived a pretty good life, and so then they'll end up in a pot serving their last purpose as a meal. But not everybody likes to butcher chickens, and so if you don't, that's just fine if you want to raise them for eggs. Eggs are excellent for nutrition. You'll find that home-raised eggs are much better than the store-bought. If all you've ever had is store-bought eggs, you need to taste a homestead fresh organic egg. You'll notice first that the yolk is much oranger, and the egg has much more flavor than any store-bought egg that you ever had. And if you figure you're only spending maybe $10 for food for 4 months, compare that to how much you're spending for eggs, and you'll find out that it's a really great value to be raising a couple of chickens. And a small pen like mine, which can be moved, and I forgot to tell you that, the pen can be moved from place to place. So in the spring, I usually move it twice a year. In the spring, I usually move that over a few feet to have it in a different location while I clear out the doo-doo to put in my garden beds, and then I'll move it to a different place again in fall. So I usually have 3 places where I kind of rotate it back and forth. A small pen like that, you can just move. You just kind of pick up one end, slide it over, pick up the other end, slide it over, and that way it's very portable. Alright folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. Go on by my website, simplesolarhomesteading.com. Get you a free copy of the plans, and take a look at some of my other projects on there. You might find something that you like. Have a great day. I'm having a great summer, everybody, so enjoy yourselves. Bye.